Hey guys, this video is all about coping mechanisms. How do we cope? How do we deal with stress on a day-to-day basis? So what I did was I caucused a lot of my clients and fans and kind of compiled all of these things to relate to you on how people cope with day-to-day problems, concerns, stresses, illnesses, things like that. How do we manage? What kinds of things people do to get by? I wanted to share this with you because I think it's important that you have as big of an arsenal on how to cope with stress. So, proactive coping is coping mechanisms that are used to prevent a possible encounter. Let's say I'm addicted to sugar and I'm trying to quit eating sugar because I know it's bad for me. A proactive coping mechanism would be to chew gum a lot that tastes a little sugary so that prevents me from wanting that sugar or from craving that sugar because it gives a little bit of a taste of the sugar. We also do use, many of us, maladaptive coping mechanisms, and this would be drugs or alcohol to deal with the stressors of everyday life. So a lot of times, um, when a person seeks treatment for drugs and alcohol, unless you're treating what's causing the stress, they may relapse easier back into drugs and alcohol because the stressors are still there and you've taken away their maladaptive coping mechanism and they have nothing else to replace it. So it's really important, if you do have a maladaptive coping mechanism, that you really try to replace that with a positive coping mechanism. So let's get into what kinds of coping mechanisms did my clients relate to me. For sadness and despair, a lot of them cry to let this energy out of their body. And then once they cry, they plan for changes in outcomes for the future. Journaling is also a big one that my clients and fans used, journaling those emotions out. If it is the passage of someone and they're sad or in despair from the loss of a loved one, planting something like a tree dedicated to that person is a way to get some of the sadness out. To deal with anger, a lot of people yell, scream. My husband loves to scream. And gaming. Gaming was a big one for the guys. I found that to get anger or frustration out, a lot of men scream, throw things, and play video games as a way to get that energy out. And so that's really good. Again, journaling that energy out, getting that energy out and onto the page. Also, women were big on this coping mechanism of cleaning the house when they're most angry. And so a lot of stuff gets done when you're mad. So don't make your mom mad, so she cleans the house. Okay, here's what people did for frustration. Some people were cognitive enough to sit down and make a plan. Physical action, again, like cleaning, going for a walk, removing yourself from the area if you get very frustrated, analyzing the situation for solutions. Again, that's not being ruled by the emotion or the stressor at that point. Taking time out was a big one for frustration, because I think that people realize that frustration leads to bad decisions, and a lot of my clients were like, I take a moment and take a time out to think and gather my thoughts. Again, coping with grief, crying, writing the loved one a letter was a good idea, I thought, for a coping mechanism. Again, planting a tree or some kind of memorial, making a memorial to that person was a really good coping mechanism. A lot of people practice distraction, which if it's a situation you can't change, distraction is a very good technique to use to relieve some of that stress. And that would be like cleaning the house. Now, if you can't eliminate the stress, here's some other things that you can do to cope. Meditation is one of those things, and relaxation techniques. There's all kinds of relaxation and meditation apps on Play Store and on iTunes that you can download on your phone. And so those relaxive techniques are just, a click away from giving you some relief to that. Some other things that people classically do to try to cope. One is a defensive way, and it's an unconscious way of coping with stress, and that is to repress whatever the stress is that's going on, repressing that moment, repressing that memory, repressing that trauma. We don't want to do that if we can't. If we can, we need to try to deal with it in the moment, but a lot of people aren't equipped to deal with it in the moment. So the defensive coping is certainly something that happens quite a bit. Adaptive coping tolerates the stress, and examples of this would be altruism and symbolization. Some people are avoidance. They use the avoidance technique, which is staying away from the stress, removing yourself from the stress. Also, denial and disassociation can be part of that type of coping. Some people that live in a fantasy world can be avoiding the real world. Behavioral modifies the way that we act in order to minimize or eradicate the stress. Examples of this would be compensation, sublimation, and undoing. Some people to compartmentalize that stress, and then they repress it. So there's so many ways to cope with stress, and there were a couple of very unique ways I saw on the internet. Swimming is one coping mechanism that I use to remove stress because the water conducts electromagnetic energy, and it seems to pull negative emotions off of the aura as you swim through the water. And the water nullifies that energy once it's removed. Another thing I saw, and this was on the internet, was a desktop punching bag. And if you guys are interested in the link to the desktop punching bag, let me know in the comments section and I will drop that link there for you. And let's see. Oh, using gemstones now is a huge way to add to your coping mechanism repertoire. And specifically for negative emotions, if you want to detox negative emotions, using rose quartz is an excellent way to do that. Again, I have a video on how to do that. If you would like to see that video, comment down below and I'll be glad to get you that link. One of the last ways I have to share with you on a new type of coping mechanism that I saw is expressive dance. And, listening to music can be so cathartic at times. And so when I saw this on expressive dance used as a coping mechanism, I just thought that that was absolutely perfect for us. I hope you guys enjoyed this short little video on coping mechanisms. Maybe it gave you an extra idea or two on things you can do to cope and deal with your stress. As always, these videos are just for self-help, and I hope you benefit from it. Anyway, kisses from Kentucky, and I will see you on the next video. Bye, guys.